What's going on, everybody? It's season, oh my gosh, 1, 2, season 3.
Sure is.
More fire for your head top, and welcome back. Is that a ghost? Is that from the past? Oh my gosh, y'all! Welcome back, Ade.
Pew, 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 pew.
Man, wow! Listen, it's 2020.
That's
it's 2020,
That's
isn't
wild.
it? Isn't that nuts? It's 2020.
That's wild.
So I definitely want to say though, I've missed you. Y'all probably noticed Ade has not been on the podcast regularly, hasn't been around, breaking my heart, quite frankly. You know what I'm saying? I cried, I was sad.
Okay. All right, sir.
I'm just thankful. I'm happy that you're here, Season 3 is going to be crazy, right? We have a lot of stuff going on. We have, more features, more profiles and highlights from, different companies. We saw y'all had, we've had Accenture on, we had Coalition of Black Excellence on. We got some other conversations and things that we're cooking up, but nothing to share just yet. We are working on a book. That's right. More to come on that later, but I'm just kind of throwing some teasers out there. We got some other media that we're going to be experimenting with this year. Really excited about that.
Hey.
And then, we got, what else, man? We got, Ade's, I'm not going to step on Ade. So she has some content that we're going to get into that she recorded, and she gets to the next stage of her professional career and journey. But I'm going to give her space to talk about that in a second. Before we go there, though, let's talk about the holiday season. What did you do?
Oh God, what did I do? I slept.
Turn up.
I ate.
Yeah.
And I twisted my ankle.
How'd you twist your ankle?
I don't even want to get into it.
Oh no. Okay.
The point remains, I survived. I survived the holiday season. I spent some time with my loved ones. I don't know if I've mentioned my nephews on here before, but I have 2 nephews, one who loves me and one hates me. But, thanks be to God, the one who hates me now loves me, and he wants to spend time with me on a regular basis now.
Children are a fickle beast, man.
They are so terrible. They are unruly, and they are tyrants. But we love them. Anyway.
Man, we do. I have a nephew. He is adorable. Goodness gracious, he's adorable. But it's like, I just realized, I guess I should go ahead and drop the news. Sheesh, I'm talking about kids. So, well, first of all, let me say this first. So, I have a nephew. He is adorable.
Yeah.
And he's a boy, right? And he's just gonna get away with everything if I babysit him because he's just too cute. But he's mischievous. Like, he's a cute little mischievous kid. But I'm just not tough enough because he's too cute. Now if y'all have ugly kids, like, bring them over. I'll be a great disciplinarian. But if your kid is cute, ain't no such thing as ugly kids. Children are a blessing. It's awesome. And actually, it's with that in mind. I actually have some news. You know what I'm saying? I'd like to share. If anybody follows me on Instagram, which y'all don't, because my follower count is not that booming like that, and I haven't posted on Living Corporate, but my wife and I are expecting our first child, little girl. Very excited, you know what I'm saying?
I just wanted to say that Ade makes a really great first name for baby girls. I'm just saying, putting it out there. Whoa. Whoa, what's with the personal attacks? Like,
oh my gosh, dog. Shout out to my wife, my spouse, my queen, my rib, you know what I'm saying? Candace, doing all the hard work. Listen, it just, I put in the work, but you know what I mean? I'm not really carrying the load, you know what I'm saying? So air horns for her. You know what I'm saying? Just really appreciate her. Just really appreciate her. But okay, so wait, so you ate, you talked about some food that so what did you eat? Like, what was your favorite thing?
God, that's a good question. I have to like go back in the memory bank.
Mm-hmm.
And by memory bank, I mean I have to take a look at these photos that I took of my baking plates.
All right, pull those up, because I know for me, like, and shout out to my grandmother-in-law. She made all types of vittles. They were delicious. And then shout out to my
wife. Did you
wife.
say vittles?
I did say vittles. I'm trying to bring
Why
vittles
are you
back
so
in 2020.
old?
Dog, I'm trying to bring 20. Who think about the last time, if you like we have not, our parents have not, perhaps our grandparents are the last generation that used the word vittles casually.
Right, and I think that's for good reason. And she leaves that term there.
Old. Vittles, dog. It's so old.
Kind of like you, we know.
Kind of like me. That's right. I'm a whole 30 out here. But
That's wild.
I know, right? Because you just turned like 19.
First of all, 16. Thank you very much.
No, not 16. Not 16. Nope. Not. There's no creep life around here. No.
Wow.
You are 20. You're 24, right? Or you're 25?
25.
Congratulations on turning 25.
25.
You know, so you're 25. Okay. And you're and so you're pulling up your plate. I was gonna say, so like I said, I was in the middle of my shout outs and my thanks before you rudely called me old. So my grandmother-in-law and then my wife made some incredible bread pudding. She made bread pudding with croissants.
Oh, wow.
And then didn't use buttermilk for the cream. Instead used what she used? Doggone it. She used eggnog. Oh. And just because because she ran out of buttermilk, it's like, it's kind of the same. That eggnog was hit. I said, yo, what is this? Literally, it got ate up. Shout out to my sister-in-law, Holly. She made some incredible mac and cheese. Yes. And Holly, listen, man, shout out to Holly, man. She's cool people. Sister-in-law, you know, I definitely consider her a Bucky, you know what I'm saying, in this space of allyship and war and fighting for equity and justice for underrepresented people. And you know how I know Holly is an ally? And I haven't told her this, so she listened to this podcast. It'll be her first time hearing this. I knew that she was an ally. First of all, she's an ally off top, because I mean, come on, like, she's been down. She's been doing this. Like but a reminder of her allyship, and because this is not the determinant, because she's been an ally off a bunch of other stuff. A reminder of her allyship. She was making macaroni and cheese, and she baked the macaroni and cheese. And I said, I knew it. I knew it, dog. She's never. No, let me tell you something. She has yet to let me down. I'll be like, dog, she holds it down, bro. She holds it down.
You are so incredibly canceled. I can't.
Shout out to Holly, my sister-in-law. Shout out to all my allies out there. And if you call yourself an ally and you're not baking your macaroni and cheese, you are not an ally, dog.
We don't know you in these streets.
We do not know you in these streets if you do not bake your macaroni and cheese. Bake it.
Because
it is not done until it's baked.
What are you doing? You are serving undercooked food.
What are you doing here? You giving me these wet, hot noodles? Bake it.
That don't even sound right.
It don't. How something wet, hot? Come on, relax. So anyway, but man, let me tell you something. The highlight of my, from a cuisine perspective, highlight was when my Uncle Marvin brought in these pecan candies.
Oh, I mean.
My goodness, listen, I said.
That's when the blessings come in. Blessings come in.
Boy, the blessed boy.
What is your problem? What?
Man, I said, bro, man, let me tell you something. As soon, and everybody got their own little bag, hand me that bag. I said,
what it do, baby?
Yeah. All right, so you were just starting 2020 off on all types of foolishness. All right, heard you.
Listen, man, I'm over here. I'm so excited because you ain't been around for a while. But see, since you've been gone, we've been using this soundboard, and I'm gonna share the soundboard with you. Yeah. Oh, listen, the soundboard is heat rock. You know, I really enjoy it quite a bit. So let me think about this. You still haven't talked about the food that you ate.
Oh, yeah. I have been really on like a smoky kick lately. So okay. I had like I made macaroni and cheese, but with all smoked cheeses.
Oh.
And it was just
Because you like cheese like that. We talked about this. You like were you just introduced to cheese recently?
Yes, I was very, very recently, like a year ago, introduced to cheese. I have discovered that I am still quite lactose intolerant. Like my ancestors were not with the lactose tip. But you know what? I'm gonna take my chances. I had my smoked mac and cheese, and I had it with the best collard greens I've ever made in all of my life. When I drizzled that little bit of just maple syrup right on it with that smoked turkey stock, I was just kind of like,
goodness gracious,
God loves me.
No, he does. That's
like,
true.
This is proof of the existence of a divine, and that dude loves me. Or do that,
man,
you know?
Let me tell you,
non-binary. Eternal existence.
So yes, and you know, it's funny because you know, you and I are sitting here, right? It was a crazy year, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know, things that we can share in time throughout season 3. Right, talking about physical health, mental health, emotional health, financial health, right? Career, personal, professional development. Things that it's interesting because, like, I don't know, man. And I'm kind of jumping all around because I'm so excited. I'm excited for you to be here, but I'm excited us to like kick off this season. And so I know, like, this is like a loosey, like, we don't have a formatted, you know, interviewee or anything like that. We're just chopping it up. Welcoming Ade back all the way. Yeah. But I don't know, man. It's just been a lot. And it's just interesting because we were creating content for Living Corporate. And at the same time, we were, you know, it was helping us while we were helping other people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let's do this. Like we said before, you had something that you already had like created and recorded.
Yep.
That I think would be really helpful for us to put in on this episode. So why don't we talk a little bit about that, and then we'll transition to that.
Awesome.
So talk to me about, like, what was it? Like, I know we talked about, you know, like your journey, you've had some updates in your life and what you've been doing professionally and personally. Like, what was it that we're going to be listening to in a minute?
Yeah. I'm just going to take a sip of my mimosa because I just feel really good about where I am right now spiritually. So,
there you go.
La 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 la. All right, y'all. So your girl is officially a junior software engineer. Bop. Yeah, no. I started my my new position as a junior software engineer, and it's honestly been surreal. My entire experience. I applied for a job. Got a call back almost instantaneously. So I made it through the first call, the phone screening with the recruiter, and then I had a technical interview, and then I had an in-person interview that was also sort of technical, and then I had a job offer, and all of that took the span of a week and a half. I literally applied to the job on a Wednesday. The Friday after that, like the week after that, on Friday, I had the job offer in my hand, and I actually had a competing job offer to move to Boston at the time. So it honestly was an incredibly surreal experience. I went from, there were days I would literally wake up to like 5, 6, 7, 8 letters of rejection in my email first thing in the morning. And I would like to kind of explore a little bit further the toll that job searching takes on your mental health. Because there were certainly days when I would literally just feel dejected. In a society where you are kind of graded on, not just graded, your worth is judged off of you know, in relation to you, in relation to your humanity, how much are you worth within a capitalistic system? And my job at the time was incredibly toxic. I felt dejected pretty much every single day waking up. But that wasn't the end of it. And I'm so glad it wasn't.
Right.
And it was, thanks to people like you, people like my best friend Kendall, people like Liz, who really like affirmed me, because I have a tendency to internalize situations and, look for ways in which these things were my fault. And I remember even having a conversation with Liz where she literally said, these are all symptoms of an emotionally abusive relationship. And I'm like, how do you have an emotionally abusive relationship with your job? But that's entirely real. It's a real thing. And just being able to step back from all of that and literally like wash my hands off at the end of the year and never have to speak to those people again, or never have to be in a situation in which I feel as though I'm compromising my mental health, for the sake of, I have to take care of my family and I have to protect what's mine. Yeah, you guys are going to hear a whole lot more of that, as the episode continues, but, I'm nothing short of eternally grateful for the fact that 2019 is over, but it was over and I took it like a G.
Yo, and shout out to you for that. Like, yo, 2019 was hard.
2019 whooped my okay? But you know what? I whooped it back.
Listen, 2019 was coming for your boy's neck. It was like, we coming for you, sucker. It's like, my gosh, leave me alone, 2019. What y'all doing? But you're right though. And look, it's a new year.
Yep, new me.
And it's, it's a new year, new spaces, new mindsets, new opportunities, and just space to reset and really get back on it, right? Like, I'm hoping that most of us were able to take some time away for the holidays so we can come back at least somewhat refreshed for a new year, a new decade. A lot of people have been saying new decade and stuff, but let's just take every day as a blessing that it's a new day, right? Like, you may not see 2030, right? But you have, if you're listening to this right now, you have this day today. And so just being excited about that. Yeah. Let's see here. We're going to transition over there. Before we do that, Ade, is there anything else that we need to talk about?
I do want to make a quick note about, so we're currently in a time of upheaval. I'm not going to make too much reference to that. I just want to kind of make the point, 2 points. One, that we don't lose sight of humanity as a whole in trying to protect our daily reality. And two, that you don't let whatever is happening in the news cycle sway you off of the intentions that you've set for this year. You set those intentions for a reason. You set those goals, whatever that you did, for a reason. And hopefully you are recognizing all the ways in which the news cycle could be causing any number of anxious or negative thoughts or anything like that. But I do want you to be able to step back. And by you, I mean the entire Living Corporate family. Be able to recognize when you are stuck in a feedback loop of negative thoughts, negative news, negative content, and kind of find your way back to your center. Because as long as there's a world out there, there is always going to be negativity to feed into, but don't let your 2020 start off with that, because we literally just kicked 2019's butt. 2020, let's focus more on our communities. Let's focus on our mental health and smashing our goals.
Yo, amen to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I super agree. And I think that, like, what you're speaking to also is like, and like, so you talk about upheaval. That reminds me of like two things. One, I just read this article and I'll put it in the show notes. It is called Democracy Grief is Real. And it's an opinion piece from the New York Times, which is like we can talk about the New York Times at a separate time. But this particular piece was very good. And just talking about the toll, the mental and emotional toll that the world's events is taking on you, like just being more and more aware of like systemic injustices, oppression, and like blatant unethical behaviors. What it like, just the impact that it has on you, just living, right? Just you seeing that, what does it do to you?
Right.
And I think, to that point, like I'm really excited because this season we're going to be talking about real structural inequity. We're going to be talking about like, we're really going to be calling out white supremacy and patriarchy and privilege and access and holding people, institutions of power to account when it comes to how they can better support and create more equitable places for Black and brown folks, for underrepresented folks, for non-straight white able-bodied men to work and to exist and to live.
Right.
Like I think 2020 is going to be a really interesting decade in that you have like, I think that there's a certain level of consciousness that like people are waking up to. I don't think there's going to be some great revival or anything like that. So like, don't misquote me, but I do think that like certain things are coming to a head. I do think that like when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion work, there just is going to be less and less space for like the corporatized, whitewashed talk tracks that we typically hear. I think that I just don't see those things surviving. I think technology and just access is changing for Black and brown folks to the point where, and this generation, like they're just not going to stay. Like they're just not going to stay and put up with being mistreated.
Right.
And we've seen it already. Like, and we've seen that. First of all, this is not a new phenomenon. Like we've seen this we've seen this from the jump for Black folks at least. But just for all oppressed groups in America, eventually there's going to be resistance. And I just think that that's bubbling up into these very like corporate spaces too. And so I'm excited because of some of the guests that we have this season, really going to be getting into that, really giving like really honest, approachable at the same time advice and on what leaders can be doing to either disrupt or dismantle systems that have historically disadvantaged Black and brown folks, underrepresented folks. And I'm just really excited about that. Like we had a few people hit me up last season, Ade, like kind of salty about like the content.
Really?
Yeah, just a little bit, like just a little, like not.
Why though?
Not why? No, they were like, they just felt like some of it was a little too honest, a little too Black. You know what I'm saying? But
may I address that real quick?
Go ahead.
Let me lubricate my throat. Kick rocks.
There are folks who want to do diversity, equity, and inclusion, but they're trying to figure out a way to do it without like offending white folks or offending the people in majority. So,
which I don't understand. I don't believe your sincerity as someone who professes that. And I recently saw a tweet, and I wish I could quote my source, but I saw someone say switch the D in DEI from diversity to decolonization.
Ooh.
Fire.
What?
Fire.
Yo,
Fire.
That is fire. Are you kidding me? Switch the D from diversity to decolonization?
Bro, it literally changed for me the entire framework of D&I, because if you were taking a liberation stance within the context of what a workplace environment needs to be, you are approaching that from the context of not only do we not care about your discomfort, we are actually actively pursuing your discomfort, because your discomfort is where your decolonization lies. Like that's where you're going to address all of the biases that you have, that you've had the privilege thus far of not having to confront. And not even your biases, but we're like actively taking back space from you and taking and giving voice to the people that have been deliberately silenced in these spaces. So again, the reason I say kick rocks is because, I mean, we're decolonizing this space. This is a decolonized space, my accent aside. So like we're really not inside joke. So we're, as far as I am concerned, like there's no such thing as prioritizing the feelings of the oppressor over the oppressed. And yes, by default, if you are not the oppressed, you are the oppressor.
And this is a binary that we actually accept on Living Corporate. You know what I'm saying? We affirm LGBTQIA plus identity, right? You know what I'm saying? We had content in the last season about, you know, being non-binary. Yo, that's great though. I'm trying to find this tweet that you said. If you just made that up, that's still fire. But
I swear I saw it on Twitter.
That's just a great quote. I love that. But no, you're absolutely right. And I think it's interesting because when you hear some of the episodes, when y'all hear some of the episodes that like we have this upcoming season, it's all about like these are people who are CEOs of like diversity, equity, and inclusion firms, right? Like they're consultants, they're executives, and I'm noticing there are certain like benchmarks around, like you can kind of tell, like I don't know, just kind of where people are, but most people tie the diversity, they tie equity to justice, right? Like when you talk about like the true DEI work in this space, it's all about justice. And it's interesting because I've seen executives of like major corporations talk about, there's a recent article from Harvard Business Review about creating like Black equity at work. And I was like, look, y'all are retweeting this. Y'all consider what this means before y'all start saying y'all want equity at work. Equity at work means like a certain level of like right sizing and really restorative behaviors that like America hasn't even like grasped onto yet. So like the concept of equity, when it's truly driven like to its like when it's really grasped, is radical, right? Like it's a radical thing to propose, and like it would disrupt and disassemble so many things that have been longstanding that have been comforting to those in the majority. And so anyway, my whole point is that like I'm looking forward to like scaring myself with the content that we're putting out this season. I don't want to pull any punches. I'm just excited about this season. So if you're listening to this and you're passionate about being seen, being heard, you're underrepresented, or you're an advocate, an ally of the underrepresented at work, and you'd like to journey with us, you'd like to be on the show with us, just contact us through the website. I guess that's it. You know, we'll what we're gonna do now is we'll pivot over to Ade's recording that she had. And this was last year. So if you hear any references, that's what that's about. But really excited for y'all to check that out. Ade, any parting words before we transition up out of here?
No, let's just in 2020 resolve to live our best lives. And I mean that in the like healthiest way possible. I've been guilty of using that phrase to justify the worst of my excesses in the past, and no promises that I won't do so again in 2020. But let's resolve to, you know, prioritize our health and our mental health in particular, and, you know, checking on your friends, because many of your friends are having a difficult time and don't know how to say it. But I believe in the power of community, and I believe that we as a whole are capable of holding each other accountable, yes, but also really uplifting each other in ways that are awesome to behold. So, and I do mean that in the old school awesome. Shout out to Zach and, you know, reviving the meanings of old words, but old school awesome in that like awe inspiring. But yeah, you're listening to Living Corporate, y'all. Peace.
All right, y'all. Welcome to season 3. Hope y'all stay around. Excited for y'all to come on this audio adventure with us this year. And we'll catch y'all next week. Peace.
What's up, y'all? This is Ade. I just wanted to pop my head back in. It's been a very, very long time since I've been around, and it's been intentional. It's been an intentional break. This has been a pretty difficult year for me, but also one of the best years of my life. I had to take a step back from a lot of things and really reassess my journey, my progress, and really where I'm trying to go with my life. That sounds like a lot. Good news, bad news. Bad news is, I turned 25 and I still don't know what I'm doing. I still don't truly know the meaning of my life. But, it's cool. I'm defining that, building my parachute on the way down. Good news. Remember when I said I wanted to be an engineer? I did it! I got an official offer, and I will be starting in my role very, very soon. Your girl is officially a full stack software engineer. Junior software engineer, but a software engineer nonetheless. And I just kind of wanted to share what went into all of this. It's been nearly 2 years. Actually, it's been 2 years since I decided that I was going to do this. And it's been, I think, the hardest thing I've ever done. And this episode is all about telling you how and why. This is Ade, and you're listening to Living Corporate. In order to be successful, I have distilled all of the things that I've learned down to 3 key ingredients: grit, faith, and humor. So many of you have been following this podcast for a while. You might not know me, since I've been gone for such a long time. Or you might not know why I am where I am and what led me to deciding that I was going to become a software engineer. And the story I always tell is that, on the eve of my 23rd birthday, I wrote 23 promises to myself. And the very first one was that I was going to learn a new skill, and I'd learn how to code. What a lot of you don't know is that the reason I even got there in the first place was because I went through a really, really bad breakup. And this is going to be super vulnerable, and I'm not going to make eye contact with anybody who listens to this for a solid year, because I don't bare my soul this often. So I went through a really bad breakup, and it had me questioning, myself, my self-worth, whether I was a good person. And it really shook me to my core. And in the midst of this breakup, right before my birthday, I'd gone to a workshop. It's called Hear Me Code. It's an organization now semi-defunct, but it's an organization led by a lady named Shannon Turner, who takes an afternoon and just teaches a whole bunch of women the basics of Python. There are 3 levels. There's the level 1, which is what I found myself in. And then you have level 2, who are people who've already been to level 1, who have the fundamentals and are trying to get a little bit better. And then you have level 3s, people who are who've been to level 1 and 2, or are a little bit more intermediate programmers and are like ready to build projects and all of the other fun stuff. Now, into this little story is where I find myself. I went to this thing. I had dropped out of grad school. I was, again, in the middle of this like super toxic breakup, and I just needed to feel good about myself. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to be spontaneous and I'm going to do this thing. And I had this old rinky-dink laptop. Took like 15 minutes to get started. And I didn't know a thing about anything. My whole life up until this point had been political science and sociology and philosophy. And I considered myself a relatively cerebral person, but like not smart. Like I didn't consider myself in any way technical. I avoided math. Like my life depended on not knowing what like algebra was. It really, I had defined myself as a person who was incapable of doing certain things, and programming would be one of those things. And so in this time when I found myself and my definition of myself unraveling, I needed to know that I was still capable of finding joy in little things. So I went to this workshop and I loved it. Like my computer couldn't like do anything. So I actually found myself on a website called Replit, REPL.IT. And it's basically like an online, it's like an online environment where you can write code and run it and see it work. And you don't necessarily have to have like mastery over your terminal. You don't need to concern yourself with anything that's going on the back end. You can literally just like print hello world and it'll print hello world. And it is a magical, magical place. And this was important because first it showed me the value of creating. Never considered myself a creative, but being able to be in a space where I was literally like forming whole things and commanding the computer to do something, and it did it. I felt powerful. I felt like a magician, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna learn how to code. But then my computer died, and I packed that up. Aaron, if you could put like a wah 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 right there, that would be great. So I packed that up, and I didn't really pick up programming again for several months after. And then came the end of October. I had, moved out of my apartment at the time. Again, this like really, really scary thing had happened to me with my ex, and I had moved home, and I felt like a failure, and I was like laying in a sleeping bag next to my mom's bed, and I was up all night just like writing these promises to myself. I had sourced promises from other people, but the very first thing that I could recall thinking was like, I want to be better. Like, I want to be a better version of myself. And the gap between who I am now and the best version of myself can be bridged. I know it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to make these promises, and I'm going to keep them. And I'm going to find 24-year-old Ade to be a better version than 23-year-old Ade. Period. No questions about it. I'm not doing this again. So I wrote those promises, and I asked the people I love to hold me to them. And in the next year, I moved out. Like, I think 3 weeks after that, I found another apartment, moved out to Alexandria, found a job that I really liked, and it all seemed to be coming together. But then my computer, the old rinky-dink computer, just died. And and I didn't have a whole lot of like personal time. So programming just kind of went by the wayside. Like I would pick it up every once in a while, and like I would complete a couple of sessions or a couple of lessons, and that'd be that. But then I I applied for this Udacity scholarship, and I got it. Which, if you know anything about me, is that like I really don't win things very often, which is, it goes into the narrative that you tell yourself about yourself, right? Like about whether or not you're a winner, or whether or not you're deserving, whether or not like this life thing is a thing that you can succeed at. And like as a sidebar, negative self-talk has been a thing for me as long as I can remember. I have never been the sort of person who like wakes up in the morning and it's like, you can do this, you're amazing, you're awesome, you can take anything that life throws at you, etc., etc. A, I'm not a morning person, so like don't talk to me until 11 a.m. And B, I just never had the voices in my head that were super positive. Like all the voices in my head were kind of sorry to whoever's listened to this and doesn't like bad words, but they were. And so throughout this process, I've actually learned that like affirmations are a huge thing for your mental health. And it's something that I incorporate now into like my life. Like affirmations, you need to hear yourself speaking well of yourself to yourself. And if you take nothing else from this podcast, take that. So we're back in, what is this? 2018? Yeah. Is it 2018? I don't think it's 2018. What is this, 2019? The years melt together. Yeah, it is 2018 actually. So in 2018, I have this fantastic job, friends, and I meet somebody new, and everything is going swimmingly, but I'm not truly like learning at the pace that I should be. So I'm going to tell you about the very first mistake that I think I made out of like, or the biggest mistake that I made, not the very first one, because there were many. There were many, they were varied, and they were huge. Now, the very first mistake I made was that I let myself get distracted. Life is not a distraction. Joy is not a distraction. Being social, letting yourself love and be loved is not a distraction. What is a distraction is when you create a goal for yourself and you do not take the necessary steps in order to get there. Now, there have been times throughout this journey, and anybody who knows me can attest to that, where I would work a full work day, and I would come home and work until 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m. even in the morning studying. Or I would wake up at 2 in the morning and study all the way through, get dressed, go to work, come back home, continue studying. And I'm not saying that that's something that you have to do. I'm just saying that it's what I did. And then there were days where for like weeks at a time, I would not pick up a book. I wouldn't open my Udacity course. None of those things. And allowing yourself to be distracted in that way is doing yourself a disservice. Not only because your brain relies on consistency, like you literally need consistency in order to get anywhere, right? Like sometimes we have this fantasy in our heads that like we're smart. So all it'll take is like the movie montage of like a week of studying something and then you'll be perfect at it. But if you've ever heard of the tale of 10,000 hours, like LeBron James and Gordon Ramsay and insert person who has mastery of their art here didn't get where they got because they put in a week of work. It required constant effort, and practice to attain perfection. And allowing myself to get distracted was so much more detrimental than the times in which I would go at something for hours at a time, simply because during the distractions are where your negative self-talk becomes the loudest, right? When the voices in your head that are telling you you're not capable of doing it, in that lull, that's when they seem right? Like, you don't do something correctly, you say, oh my God, I'm never going to amount to this lofty goal that I set for myself, right? And then you procrastinate, and then you walk away, and you have one more goal unfulfilled. So if you take, yet again, nothing else from this podcast, consistency is key. So if you remember at the beginning of this conversation, I said grit, faith, and humor. So grit is the concept that you are persistent, that you allow yourself to fail and you pick yourself up and you keep going. Actually, over the course of my studies, I developed a mantra for myself because it got to be almost crippling, this fear that I had of failing. So I'm going to read you guys the mantra. I hope it's helpful. I hope you guys like it. So here's my mantra. This is why I'm here. I like succeeding at the difficult things. I like the win. I like the burning in my lungs and the adrenaline in my veins. I like the view from the top of the mountain and knowing I conquered. I am not a quitter. I do not lose. I will not be defeated by the gaps in my knowledge. I will not be defined by what I cannot do. I believe in my ability to make sense and wholeness out of the things that are new and scary. I will not be ruled by fear. Ever. There were days where I would write that mantra out to myself over and over and over again on a pen and a pad of paper. I would type that out before I got started sometimes on my lessons. I would read it over and over and over at myself in the mirror, because fundamentally this thing that I am doing, where I am trying to shift the course of my life, and it felt like the weight of my whole family was on my shoulders, that's scary. It's intimidating. And if you don't have grit, it might crush you. And that goes for literally anything. For those of us who are underrepresented minorities, who are first gen, who are the first in our families, to attain a certain level of success, you know how scary that success is. And the bare knuckled grit that you have on everything to make sure that nothing falls and nothing fails, you have to let go of that. And that fear is only keeping you from being the best version of yourself. By the way, this whole process didn't turn me into a motivational speaker either. So if you if you want to skip through half of this, it's totally okay. I'm not taking offense. All right. So told you why you need grit. Now I do need faith. Now, faith got me through the worst of what grit couldn't. After I got to a place where, I'd done all the things that people say that you need to do. You learn the fundamentals, and then you learn a framework. Then you build projects. Build more projects. Build a portfolio. Build more projects. After I did all that, I started applying. I applied to internships. I applied to jobs. I applied to externships. I applied to jobs in Poland. I applied to jobs in Iceland. I applied to jobs that would require me to live in places where it's -20 degrees on a regular schmegular day. And I don't know if you know me, but I'm African and we don't do that. And every single time I got like a no thank you, sorry but no thank you, we have decided to move on to other candidates at this time, best of luck. One that actually really shattered me, I got all the way through a lot of the screening questions, and then this company that shall not be named sent me a link to a personality quiz, and I took it. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And then they sent me an email back like, sorry, your personality is not best suited for our company. I'm just kind of like, wow, my whole personality, fam? My whole personality is not best suited to be a software engineer. Bet. But I had faith, right? Like, you reach a plateau once you have done the work and you have put in the effort and you've put in your blood, sweat, and tears. I actually bled once. Long story. Don't want to talk about it. And yes, there were lots of tears. But once you get there, there is a certain faith that you have, right? And it helps when you have people around you who keep you keeping the faith. For me, I had my best friend. My best friend is also a self-taught developer, and it's really uncanny, but like we're the same person. He he has like 8 years on me, but we are genuinely like the same person. It is so odd. We have the exact same reactions to things, the same mentality, but he's a better version, right? Like, he's had 8 years to hone his craft. And the level of dedication and will that he showed, I had to level up. I had to match that like level of intensity. And when I ever felt like I couldn't do it, he always came through with a pep talk. Before my very last interview where I got this position, I will never forget. I was on my way to my job interview, and he literally said, "You're not looking for a job to be a developer. You are a developer. You're just looking for a chance to prove it." And that confidence, I think, showed up in my interview, because I have never spoken so confidently about MVC controllers. I've never spoken so confidently about use state hooks in my life. And that faith that I had that everything was going to work out, I keep that still, right? Like, ever since I got the position, I've had the recurring thoughts of, what if I get there and I flame out? What if, they rescind their offer 3 days before I get there? Or, and any number of like worst case scenarios. And like, I now have this new voice, super quiet, but it's there. It's like saying, bro, you'll be okay. The same way you got that job is the same way that if like anything happens to that job, you'll get another, because you've done the work. You've done the work and you've gotten this far. Doesn't matter what anybody else says now. So last thing you'll need is a sense of humor. You may have heard me chuckling a few times, and that's because I remember the number of days where I literally would have to get up in the middle of my studies and have a dance break. I would reward myself with dance breaks, whether or not my code was actually working, because I felt that because all of this is so heavy, and because I needed to like tap into my like inner wells of grit and strength that I did not have before I started this process. Trust me, I was a wilting flower in the sun before any of this got started. And I'm still a wilting flower in the sun a lot of ways, but levity and humor are so underrated because it literally lightens your spirit, right? Like finding a way to laugh will take you far. Not only because it shows that like you're still here, like you're the core of your personality has not changed. It also shows that like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You might feel like you're going through the crucible of your life at this point, but at the end of it, life is still what you make it, right? And I choose to laugh through things. I choose to find the levity and find the joy and find the light and hold on to it. That's all I'm going to say about that. Whatever ways you find your find humor and find joy, I encourage you to hold on to that. Now, some actionable tips, because I've just been like giving you the feels. Some real things that you can actually do if you want to be a developer. Number one, set a goal. That was the very first mistake that I made. I said, I want to learn how to code. I didn't say, I want to learn how to be a front-end developer or a back-end developer or a full-stack developer or a DevOps engineer. If you don't know what any of those things are, good. Go look them up. Anybody these days who asks me how they can break into tech, how they can learn how to code, how any of those things, the very first thing you need to do is define your goal, set it, and then develop your roadmap. Because otherwise you are literally going to be twisting in the wind because you have no idea where you're going. There's nothing worse than a nebulous understanding of what you want. If you start a journey, you have to know where you're going. I mean, sure, you could do what I did and like get in a car and say, I want to go somewhere, and like find yourself stranded in the middle of Oklahoma. But like I wouldn't advise that. Don't do that. Do it the smart way. Define what you actually want to do. Sometimes you might like look up what front-end developers do and be like, yeah, no. How about I go in cybersecurity, right? Like it's an entire about face. Which is why you need to, it's a good thing to do, to define the parameters. It also helps you know when you have succeeded, right? A lot of the fear that I had when I first started to apply to positions was that like, I don't know that I'm a developer yet, right? Like I don't know that I'm good enough to apply to places. And that's because I never defined for myself what it means to be good enough to apply to places, right? There are places that will take you when you are an unformed ball of Play-Doh and fashion a developer out of you. And then there are places that want you to show up as Michelangelo's David, and then and only then will they give you a position in the company. And then there are places that are vastly varied in between, and you have to figure out what it means to like throw your dart at one of those places in between, or you know, whatever end of the spectrum you want to live in, and know that you're able to get into those doors. Set a goal. 2, it is okay to reassess or to change your mind. When I first got started, I said, I'm going to be a front-end developer. Actually, no, I said I'm going to be a full-stack developer. And then I said, I want to be a blockchain engineer. And then I said, I don't want to do this at all. Actually, never mind. I changed my mind. And then I said, you know what? Being a full-stack engineer sounds good. How about I do that? You can do that. Just make sure it all goes back to number 1. Make sure that once you have changed your mind, once you have reassessed, once you have course corrected, you still set a goal and define for yourself what it means to have reached it. Cool. Number 3, learn from others. I cannot stress this enough. Learn from others. Learn from others. Quick ASMR for your head top. Learn from others. It's important. This is an industry, tech in general, is far more collaborative than you might think it is. If the idea you have of hackers in your head is like that person who's like in a basement somewhere and frantically like typing on their keyboard. I don't understand how they haven't broken their keyboard, but they're frantically typing. And you see a whole bunch of like green letters and numbers on their screen, and it's great. And like 5 seconds after they started typing, got it, I'm in. Yeah, no. If I'm typing that furiously, it's because I'm looking around on Stack Overflow trying to figure out where I went wrong. There are whole communities on Reddit, Stack Overflow, Free Code Camp that are geared towards helping you not sit and look for 6 hours for an answer to a question that 100 million people have also spent 6 hours searching for an answer to. Like, you literally can go to Stack Overflow, or you just like type out whatever your error is, and then at the end of your error, just type Stack Overflow, and I can almost guarantee, like, you're not the first person to break whatever it is that you broke. There's nothing new under the sun. It may be a new language, it may be a new framework, it may be a new whatever, but there's nothing that is so new that somebody else hasn't thought about it, asked that question, and probably solved it. So yeah, allow the successes and failures of others to help inform you. Learning from others is not just about being online. Part of the thing that helped me, I went to meetups. I actually briefly served as an organizer for Black Code Collective, which like will forever have my heart. Women Who Code, React DC. There's so many different meetups, and you know, DC is not unique in having those organizations. They're all over. Go to meetup.com for as long as it exists, and look for those communities near you, and be intentional about the workshops that you go to, the people that you meet, because those networks are also important. You do not have the luxury, if you're a self-taught developer, you do not have the luxury of sitting back and waiting for the universe to like drop knowledge or networks or contacts or jobs into your lap. You have to do the legwork of developing and building those communities for yourself. Which brings me to my final point. Standing on the shoulders of giants still requires you to do the work. I'm going to repeat that because I kind of said it fast. Standing on the shoulders of giants still requires you to do the work. One more time for those in the back. Standing on the shoulders of giants still requires you to do the work. You have to do the work. There are no shortcuts through it. I'm not one of those people that like tells you, oh, you have to work 50, 60 hour weeks in order to get where I am. I'm telling you what I did, but there's something universal about what anybody else has done. You have to do the work. We all have done the work. We're going to continue doing the work because this is not an industry that stagnates. Like, I'm sure whatever I learned back in 2018, I mean, literally, what I learned in 2018 about React has changed because of React hooks. So, don't know what to tell you. You have to do the work. There's nobody who's going to like come and crack your skull open and dump all that there is to know about programming in your head, or, you know, whatever it is that you want to study, whether you want to be like, you want to be in cybersecurity, you want to be a pen tester, you want to be a cloud engineer, cloud architect. None of those things are going to happen unless you do the work. You have to do the work. And for those of us, and this is the part that I hate having to say, but for those of us who are underrepresented minorities, you will hear people say, oh, take shots that mediocre white men will take because, you know, they're a mediocre white man and they'll take it, and so why can't you? I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying that you have to pull up to those rooms as a person that you are, because they will check you in ways that they won't check the mediocre white man. If there are gaps in your knowledge, that's something that a weekend of studying can fix. You cannot allow there to be gaps in your will. You cannot allow there to be gaps in your faith in yourself. Well, yeah, it comes right back to the very first things that I mentioned: grit, faith, and humor. You cannot allow there to be gaps in any of those things. I hope this helped. I'm also going to be writing a thread about this later on. There's a thread out there. It's called hashtag 30 days of threads. The 30 is in 30. And I'm probably going to be contributing to that hashtag just to share more concretely some of the tools, some of the resources that I've used. So I look forward to sharing some of that information with y'all. I really hope that this helped, and I wasn't just like ranting for no reason, which I've been known to do. And I hope that for those of you who are going on a similar journey, and this has been pretty tech specific thus far, but people do career pivots in any sort of direction, right? Like, there are people who are pivoting from having a 9-to-5 to being an entrepreneur. And I think there are some themes that are universal. If you are pivoting from being a banker to being a teacher, there's some things that are universal. You are going to need grit. You're going to need faith. And you're going to need humor. Maybe that should be the title of the show. I don't know. All right. That's it from me. Thank you for listening. The Living Corporate family has been incredibly supportive. I want to thank Zach in particular for not giving up on me, because somewhere between all of those months, I think there were months at a time that I gave up on myself, and it showed. But we're here now. I also want to give a quick shout out to my grandma, who died, I think, 2 weeks before. Was it 2 weeks? Yeah. 2 weeks before I actually got this position. And now I'm going to be a little teary on the mic. Like I said, 2019 was a hard one. But I come from a very long line of powerful, intelligent, capable women. And she was one of those. And the world is a slightly dimmer place without her. But I gained an angel, and there's nothing more empowering than knowing that you did this thing, turned everything around for yourself, and being able to like look up and say, I did it. And I know that she saw it. Okay, I'm going to stop now. I've been like more vulnerable in this, I want to say 40 plus minutes than I've been in like a year. So this is my dose of vulnerability and realness. I'm going to go back to masking my vulnerability with many, many things that I'm not going to be discussing on this podcast. All right. I'm going to go. Thank you so much for listening, for your support, for your guidance, for your prayers. This has been Ade. You've been listening to Living Corporate. Peace.
Living Corporate is a podcast by Living Corporate LLC. Our logo was designed by David Dawkins. Our theme music was produced by Ken Brown. Additional music production by Antoine Franklin for Musical Elevation. Post-production is handled by Jeremy Jackson. Got a topic suggestion? Email us at livingcorporatepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and living-corporate.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.